Hey guys, just checking in real quick. Wanted to explain something before you watch the video. We are now getting into episode 2 of the Janus Project. Now, the interesting thing now that we're going to start doing is I'm going to start putting information on the screen. So you can listen to it like a podcast if you want to, but you may want to check in every now and then. Just make sure you're paying attention to the screen. I'm going to throw definitions up. I'll throw little taglines that kind of explain what I'm talking about. And what I hope that does is gives you a little bit more information. So that way you're not just taking my word for all of this stuff. If you have questions on it, if you have things that you're like, well, that didn't really explain it, feel free to leave a comment and I will try to make an address on it in a future video to help you explain things. I do not want to take things out of context. I don't want to caricature people. And so that's my effort, is to put the actual information where I'm getting some of this stuff right there. And so I would recommend pausing it every now and then, because it will be too much to read and listen to what I'm saying at the same time. So every now and then I'll put a warning that says, hey, pause the video, because the next thing coming up will be like a big block of text. But just figured I'd explain that before you get into the main gist of the video. So anyway, hope you guys enjoy. Please share this video with a friend. Like and subscribe, hit that little notification bell. And then also, like I said, let me know as you have questions. And I hope this is a blessing to you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy the information I'm presenting. All right, well, welcome to the Janus Project once again. We're doing something a little different this week. We are actually going to start getting into our systematic theology for non-Christians. And so this is an effort over the next few weeks. We're going to start digging into some of this stuff. Every now and then you might see some book reviews, might see some other trivial stuff come up. But what we're really trying to do here is we're trying to open it up so that you guys can see the importance of Christianity to our culture, but also start spotting non-Christians as they appear. I've talked to people before who have absolutely no Christian testimony whatsoever, and they will actually say like, oh, we Christians. They couldn't expound at all what it is to be a Christian, but they will still claim it. So I'm gonna throw it up right here as you guys look at this. There is a Twitter thread that happened a few weeks back, and I just want you to read this. I want you to see some of this stuff that came up, and it brought a lot of derision. It brought a lot of mockery. I saw people saying, you know, I'm a vegetarian, but I eat meat. I'm an astronaut, but I've never been to space. In fact, I don't believe in space. So you see some of those comparisons that rapidly come up. And so what I want to do is, like I said, I'm going to throw it up right here. But I want you guys to see this. This is a person on Twitter, and it says this: since conservative Christians keep coming at me here. And so this is a person claiming to be a Christian. Now, whether you're a Christian or not, I want you to examine what she says, and I want you to ask yourself, what does it take to be a Christian? Is it just simply enough to say, I am a Christian? Or do you have to believe a certain thing? All right? I would use the comparison to say this. I play a lot of video games for fun, all right? Don't get a whole ton of time to do it these days because, you know, I have a whole bunch of small kids in the house. But when I get to play, I do enjoy them. And so what I've got here is I have some of my Warcraft memorabilia. All right. Now let me use this as an illustration. Okay. So this is a book that came along with one of my my games, and what it has on it is it has the Horde symbol. Now, if you played World of Warcraft or Warcraft 1 or 2 or 3, you probably know the Horde. Okay. The Horde is an enemy of the Alliance. Okay. And bear with me, this illustration's going somewhere. All right, so I got the Horde. They stand for a certain set of things. There's certain races that can be Horde, okay? So you're known as the Orcs, the Trolls, the Blood Elves, the Tauren, all right? The Forsaken. Those are the races that play the Horde. Now, a whole ton more have come out since the game started, but But those are the basics. On the other hand, the alliance is things like the humans, the night elves, the dwarves, the gnomes, okay? You get the picture, all right? Now, I play the horde. As you can tell, I like the horde, okay? I've got Saurfang up here, I have an orc here. I am unabashedly pro-horde. Doesn't mean I like everything they do, but it's just something I started like 2008, so I've been doing this for like 12 years. I just always liked the trolls, so I just play horde. Okay, it's what I do. So I can tell you, okay, if I'm gonna go blue or red, I'm gonna go red. If I'm gonna be the noble warrior or the a little bit brutal, I'm probably gonna go with a little bit more brutal. All right, that's what the horde stands for. All right. Now their honor and there's certain aspects there, but if you know anything about World of Warcraft or Warcraft, you know there's certain things that the horde stands for. So if I said I am pro horde, but my favorite color is blue, I'm pro horde, but I play humans. I'm pro-horde, but I couldn't tell you the first thing about who leads it. Something is not matching up. Either the words that I'm using aren't matching reality, or my definitions for those words are completely separated from what your definition to those words are. All right? This gets into a difficult situation that we have in today's world, and it's this. Words don't have meanings anymore, right? We've gotten into this realm of deconstructionism where words just, who cares what the original meaning of the word meant? It's the meaning that I give it. So I wrote a book one time, all right? I invented words for this book. I can tell you what those words mean because I'm the inventor of those words. You can't come along and say, well, I don't care what the author said. This is what those words mean. Because I am the absolute authority on the words that I invented. All right? Here's how this ties into our culture, because our culture has determined that there are meanings for certain words. We have this thing, all right? So this little stand, it's a stand for books, so we call it a book stand, all right? We came up with a term that matches what this thing does, but also describes it so that I don't have to say that thing there that does the thing and the thing, with the stuff and things. Okay? You see, we need words because words will tell us what things are. All right? So we have certain terms in our vocabulary because someone said, I need a word for this, and then they came up with the word cup or mug or vessel, or what? There's a whole bunch of different words, but they all express something about a cup. All right? And so what we've done is we've come up with words to describe things, but our culture today is trying to take all the meaning away from words. If I can take all the meaning away from words, if I can take all the nuance, and that's a word we're going to use a whole ton, all right? Nuance, all right? We're going to use that word nuance over and over and over again, because that's something that our culture doesn't understand. It doesn't understand the subtle nuances of the meaning of words. And they think, our culture does, that they can assign whatever meaning to words they want, and because they assigned a meaning to a word that already existed, therefore, that's what the word means now. It doesn't work that way. Just on your own time, look up the definition of the word racism. And then look at how it's being used today. And you'll find that the way it's being used today has more to do with Marxism than it does with the actual meaning of the word. Because they will tell you that only those in power can be racist. Now look at the meaning of the word racist. Do those two truths match up? They don't, because what they've done is they've started changing the meanings of words. All right? So as we deal with this tweet, and as we build this framework that we're going to go forward with, we are going to deal with some of the nuances of this truth. All right? But I want you to look at this tweet. All right? So again, it's right here. But she says this: I am a Christian, and I believe that proselytizing is violence against another. This is carrying on the very famous mantra you'll hear today, that both silence is violence, but also speaking out against people is violence. So like you'll see that same idea. I hate to break it to you. If it's not a physical assault or a verbal assault, like actual in your face, it's not violence. Like, you can call it violence all you want, but it's not. I heard a lady say this recently. They were comparing the violence that has been done to blacks throughout the years to the violence that was done at the protests, and they're like, those aren't even comparable. And I could make the case to say, yeah, that they're not, but they're still both violence, because that's what the word violence means. Now, you can make the case, it's the difference between and a nuclear bomb. All right, they both hit the earth. They're both causing, some damage. This is molecular. That one's blowing everything into molecules. All right, those both involve hitting, but they're drastically different hittings, if you get what I'm saying. But they're both violence. All right? So what we're doing is we're looking at a word, and she says, I am a Christian, and I believe proselytizing is violence against another. Again, we're going to look at some of these things, but this is a woman who is claiming to be a Christian, and I want you to understand what she is saying is Christian. She says this, I am a Christian, and I believe LGBTQ plus people are divine and should lead us. Okay? That also happens to be what Black Lives Matter right now is saying. If you look at some of their mission statement, they are very much into putting LGBTQ plus, okay, there's a whole lot more to that acronym, but there's a whole lot there, and they are in putting them in leadership positions, okay, as if being LGBTQ AAIP plus, as if being that is now something special because you happen to be attracted to your own gender or whatever. And we'll get into some of that with Love Thy Body when we do a book review on that. But again, believe that they are divine and they should lead us. So she's saying that is a essentially Christian view. She also says this, I am a Christian and I learn a lot from people who do not share my faith. Okay, I mean, I personally don't find a problem with that, because I learn a lot from people who don't share my faith. You look at the book collection behind me, a lot of those people don't share my faith, so to speak. I can still learn from them. But look at it. I'm a Christian and I don't go to church. I'm a Christian and I don't believe the Bible is the Word of God. I am a Christian and I embrace sex positivity, which includes but is not limited to sex outside of marriage. Now, I want you to put a pin in some of these, because when we get into Love Thy Body and some of the other books that we're going to review, I want you to understand the danger of this. But to demonstrate it, allow me to make an illustration, okay? There's a lot of people who will struggle with the idea that God, first of all, put the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the garden in the first place. But they will also struggle with why did he kick him out for that? Like, why is God so hurtful? There's a lot we can get into. I'm not going to unpack that whole thing on an apologetics level at the moment. But I like to use the illustration of, first of all, we're not robots, so God's giving us a choice. So that's one answer you'll hear a whole lot. But the other answer I like to give is this. There are times where something has a purpose, okay? So when I used to teach chemistry, I had a chemical cabinet over on the side of my classroom. That cabinet was locked, it had warning signs all over it, and it contained chemicals that were extremely dangerous. All right, hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid, just all sorts of acids and other chemicals that, if mixed or if used wrong, could do some real damage. They had a purpose, though. In fact, to teach chemistry, I needed those there. And so I like to compare the Garden of Eden to God's chemistry cabinet. We don't know what the purpose of some of those things were. All we know is God said, don't touch it. And as a teacher, that's what I used to say. I used to show them the cabinet and say, do not get in this. If you get into this, you're in trouble. I wasn't trying to be hateful. I wasn't trying to be mean. I had a chemical cabinet because it served a purpose. They may or may not have appreciated the full reason why I had that chemical cabinet there. But I had it locked up and I had special parameters to use it because I knew the dangers, but I also knew the use of it. And so a lot of people really bash God because they say, why on earth did you have the tree in the middle of that garden where you knew they would find it? Why didn't you throw it up on top of a mountain, put a fence around it, have like electric wiring or something? Okay, we don't know what purpose it was there for. We don't know why God had that tree in the first place. We do know God wanted to give them a choice. We do know that God knew exactly which choice they would make. We know that because as we dig into the life of Christ, which we'll do in a little bit, as you study Christ, it says that he is the lamb slain from the foundation of the world. So in God's eyes, Christ had already died to pay the penalty for our sins, like right off the bat, because he knew the decision that we as humans would make. But I think what it is God is setting up something in the garden to say, you don't know the purpose of it, you don't know why it's there, but I'm going to warn you. It's dangerous, don't touch it. And we as humans, as we all do, are stupid. And we went and ate it. And we went right to it. I mean, just stupid, all right? But you know you would do the same, all right? I use the illustration a lot when I teach for science camp and do some of my chapels. I use the illustration of a broom closet we have in the meeting room. And I say, imagine there were no rules at camp at all except stay out of that broom closet. You could do anything. Like you could burn a building down. We wouldn't care. You could get in fights. You could go sleep. I don't care. I don't care what you're doing. Just don't go in that broom closet. What would someone eventually do? And without fail, they all admit, someone eventually would go open that door to the broom closet to see what's in there. They would think that even though they had free reign of everything else, something's being withheld from them. They need to see what's inside that broom closet. That's the point. And so a lot of times throughout the Bible, God is going to give us restrictions because he knows the danger of the substance. He knows the danger that we're in if we don't follow his guidelines. And so he gives us very clear warnings. And so that's why I think this is extremely dangerous of this girl to say, I'm a Christian and I embrace sex positivity, which includes but is not limited to sex outside of marriage. That is actually one of the most harmful things you could get into. All right. Again, we're going to get into it with Love Thy Body, which is the book behind me. That whole idea of loose living and just the hookup culture is so extremely harmful. It has that appeal because it's the forbidden, it's the thing that we can't do. We need to go after this. But it is actually a loving thing to say, you know what, teenager, you're not ready for a sexual relationship, so you probably shouldn't be getting into it. Childbirth aside, you're definitely not ready for that. Physically, emotionally, socially, none of that, all right? But you are not ready to have the intimacy of sex, and you're not ready to have the regrets for when that doesn't work out, and now you're stuck with another partner, because you're having to push down all of those emotions and all of that passion and all of that pain. You're having to push all that down, and you're not ready for that. And so that's what God is actually trying to do in saying, do not have sex outside of marriage. He's actually trying to protect us. It's not just saying, oh, I'm just being a killjoy. No, he's actually protecting us. And when someone like this comes along and says, it's fine, I'm a Christian and I embrace this. No, actually that is completely unbiblical, right? Now, let's pause. Let's say you're a non-Christian, okay? I hope some of you are watching. I hope I haven't sounded too ranty yet, all right? But think about it. Whether or not you agree with my stance, would you at least admit that if you take a look at the Bible is very clearly against sex outside of marriage. I mean, just look at a few of the verses. Okay, that's just a few. Okay? So those are just a few of the verses that say, do not have sex outside of marriage. Okay? We could get into some of the verses against homosexuality. Okay? We could also get into some of the verses that talk about the fact that it is a good thing to tell other people about Christ. It is a good thing to witness to other people. We could go into another one that says you should be in church. We could go into other passages that talk about the Bible is the Word of God. Okay, do you see my point? You may or may not agree with me, but you at least would admit, based on just a few of those verses, that the Bible says a few things about what it means to be a Christian, and none of these seem to match up. All right? You can keep going. I'm a Christian, and I do believe that everyone has access to God. Everyone. I'm a Christian, and I do as I please, which is not to say I harm anyone. That is never okay. Let's pause here. If you study out the religion of Wicca, that is actually one of their mantras. And if it harm none, do as you will. That's Wicca, all right? Which is kind of a witchcraft thing. It's not like the boil your spell and call down a black cat and all that. It's a different type. But that's not Christian, okay? If you see a bumper sticker that says like "Blessed be" and "If it harm none, do as you will," that is not a Christian mindset, all right? That's not a Christian mantra. That's Wicca, all right? That's paganism. Like, by definition. I'm not saying like, oh, you heathen. No, I'm saying like, that is by definition not the way Christians see the world. Like I said, words have meanings. If you are a Christian, you believe certain things. If you are not a Christian, you do not typically believe certain things. That's what keeps you from being a Christian. Keep going. I am a Christian, and I know that Christianity has been used as a weapon of white supremacy for so long that any Christian who isn't actively dismantling it is harming people with their theology. This one's a tricky one, and it involves a little bit more in-depth looking at it. But the fact that you have a massive amount of black churches, you have a massive amount of Chinese churches, you have Middle Eastern churches. You know who the earliest Christians were, right? Jewish people. Okay? I don't think they were concerned with white supremacy. Now, from there, it did take a really good foothold in Europe, which is primarily white people, took a pretty good foothold in Russia, which again is primarily white people. Apparently we handle the cold better or something. But there were massive amounts. In fact, some of the early, staunch supporters of Christian doctrine were in Africa. All right? In fact, they were there until around the 700s when this thing called Islam ripped across Africa and then came up into Spain, where it was stopped by the Europeans. And then it ripped up its way into Turkey until it got to about Constantinople area. And when that finally fell in the 1400s or so, that's what actually prompted the exploration the other direction, because they could no longer do the trade routes because the Muslims had blocked it. It's some interesting history there. But there's some reasons why Europe remained primarily Christian, whereas other areas remained primarily pagan and or Muslim because of how certain wars were. So to make this blanket statement, it's disingenuous at best, it's ahistorical, but we could go into it and talk about the Christians who were white supremacists. I think that's wrong. But if you look at some of the most abusive regimes, some of the most bloodthirsty regimes, they were actually communist, which is very atheistic. So if we're looking at violence and ruthlessness and randomly killing people, it's really not Christians. Okay, and as we'll look, there are some Christians who didn't act like Christians, so that's why I say there probably weren't. Continuing here, and we're not going to go through all of these. There's so much more we can look at. I'm a Christian, and I believe people know what's best for them. Okay, sometimes that means running away from Christianity. I applaud them. I don't know what to say. Because outside of Christ, there is no salvation. So if you run away from Christ, that path only leads to condemnation. I don't know why you would applaud someone there. Now, if you're looking at the strict rigors of Christianity, where it's more of the cultural Christianity rather than religion, then we could have a talk, okay? But look at some of these things. This is not what it means to be a Christian. Now she does go on more and more. But again, we've unpacked a few of these already. Does that fit the definition of Christian to you? I find it funny because there's actually some people who have done some work to debunk her online a considerable bit. But I ask you this question. As we look at what it means to be a Christian over the next few weeks, you have people like this who will claim to be Christian. And they seem really to be following this verse right here. A group of people who will say, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name? Have we not cast out demons? Have we not done this, that? Those are really Christian things. But look at what he says. So it's the conviction of saying, not everyone who says they're a Christian is. Not everyone who acts like it is. To be a Christian really means believing a certain number of things. And to be a Christian really means that internally, you are that way. So you can put on a show, you can put on an act, Some people, they don't even put on an act, they just claim the title. And so as we go through this systematic theology for non-Christians, I hope that it'll be a help to you. I hope it'll be a help refuting some of this type of stuff. But I also hope that it'll be an encouragement to you and a challenge to make sure that you, if you are a Christian, or if you claim to be a Christian, that you actually are. And so this is episode 2 of the Janus Project, where we just look at something as simple as this. Guys, thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments or get in touch with me through Twitter. If you know my Facebook, you can get in touch with me there. But send me a message. Let me know how I can help. Let me know some of your questions. If there's something in this that you're confused by, I'd love to hear it. But again, as we go forward, take a look at the last episode. Get ready for some of those book reviews. And we're going to continue this in a little bit. So guys, tune in out. Hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode of the Janus Project, where we just debunked something very simply. And I hope you understand a little bit more about definitionally what does it mean to be a Christian. All right, I will see you, Lord willing, next week.